Today we're going to answer the question, why is every rock biography the same? They all follow the same rock star story arc, and today we're going to learn why. It's the rock and roll fairy tale we've all heard 100 times, equal parts lightning bolt and cautionary tale. Our hero is born into a pressure cooker of poverty, pain, or parental tyranny, finds salvation in a six string, and joins forces with fellow misfits to start a band. They chase the dream through sticky clubs and busted vans, and just when it all seems hopeless, boom, they're famous. But fame has a dark side, sophomore slumps, substances, and spectacular flameouts. The band breaks up, the dream dies, until years later, a comeback tour attempts to revive the ghost. Sometimes magic returns, and sometimes it's pure cringe. Now, this is the Classic Rockstar Arc. Right? And if you read books, about rock stars or their biographies or all that, it's a common arc that you see in the storyline. And when I talked to Alan Niven on my channel, the former manager of Guns N' Roses, he deliberately wrote his book in a different fashion because he didn't want it to have that classic rock star arc that everybody has done to death. But man, it makes you wonder, why are the stories so similar, right? Number one, the origin, born in the gutter, but aiming for the stars. Raised by wolves or worse, emotionally absent dads. They grew up where their only escape was a pawn shop guitar. This is a common thing. And I think the reason why this is the case, right? Sure, you have a few Nepo babies that maybe, get some fame. And, people are largely saying that now the music business is filled with Nepo babies because you have to have money to be able to survive as an artist in what is largely a losing money venture. But in the past, our rock stars rose from poverty. And is there not a greater story than the story of Elvis growing up in the hood, growing up in a shotgun shack? His daddy had gone to prison for a year, for writing a bad check. And, this kid who was driving a truck happens to walk into a recording studio to make a record for his mom. And boom, he blows up, right? And perhaps the reason why these people flame out is because they were never prepared for success. And here's the deal, man. Poverty was the prison that they broke out of, right? They broke out of it when they picked up that cheap guitar. Now, in the common rock star band story arc, number 2, the first sparks, Misfits unite. They found salvation in a high school dropout who could play like Hendrix. Formed a band in a garage that smelled like beer, smoke, but hope. We couldn't afford strings, but we had songs. Does that sound familiar? It sounds familiar because it happened over and over again. Look, forming a rock band and becoming a huge success is always a tough venture, right? But you find that singer that comes from a broken home and is got the motivation to go out there and get all the attention that he didn't get at home. And he hooks up with that quiet guy with a guitar who has amazing ability. And whether that's David Lee Roth and Edward Van Halen, or any of the other rock singer, rock guitar player combos. It takes often that to have that spark, right? And it helps if they have a great drummer. It helps if they have a great bass player. But it's largely when those two misfits align that the story is able to start to move forward. And of course, number 3, the grind, bars, vans, and delusions. They play every dump that they possibly can. In the case of Van Halen, playing wet t-shirt contests, playing biker bars out in deep in the valley of California. It's a common thing because this is the training ground, right? If you listen to the early tapes of any rock band, you'll hear some talent there, but you'll notice the talent isn't fully developed. These old bars, these backyard parties, these types of really paying your dues type gigs, this is how a band gets good. They don't just get good rehearsing. Rehearsing is a huge part of it. And you've got it. Look, if you're in some cushy rehearsal hall with air conditioning and a vending machine and, guys rolling in your back line for your rehearsal, it's tough to get good, man. I mean, here's the thing, man. When I was in Nashville, I always viewed those times where we would start the beginning of the year and we're going to all go in and rehearse our show, and that show was the show that was going to carry you through the year, with talking like playing with an artist, right? And I always welcome that as, hey, man, this is a time we could put aside all the extracurricular activities and we can get back to basics. Let's get in a room and let's all sweat and let's work our butts off. Now, I can't say that happened a lot because we weren't in a garage. We weren't in a, place with no air conditioning or no heat. These bands that bust out of nowhere largely have to come from rehearsing in a sweaty, uncomfortable garage or some kind of building where it just builds character, right? You often get paid in beer and bad decisions. The tour van will have 3 working gears and no brakes, just like the band. And then there's number 4, the breakthrough. Lightning strikes. One night, someone important was in the crowd and sober enough to remember. Now, you'll often find when you're playing in a band, you're going to have people coming up to you every night telling you that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And man, I'm going to do something. I'm going to help you guys. And man, I'm going to call my friend and, we're going to see about getting you guys out of here. But it often doesn't happen. There's that barroom beer talk, right? Or people are making promises. People are saying they're going to help you. People are saying they're going to do this and do that. It doesn't always happen. But when it does, often these bands sign the contract without reading it, right? Here's another sneaky thing that labels can do. They can say, well, look, if you'd like, you can use our lawyer. And our lawyer will explain to you what's in the contract. Because here's the deal. You're often so broke that you can't afford to hire a good lawyer to read the contract. That is the reality of it. So oftentimes, man, be wary of that. Always have some money aside to hire somebody to read it. But here's the deal. There's probably going to be stuff in that contract that you're going to be like, man, this is not good. They're signing us for perpetuity. They're going to own our masters for perpetuity. They want 50% of our publishing. They want a piece of our merchandise money. All of these things. But guess what? If you don't sign it, or if you make certain demands and you're just a nobody in a bar, well, guess what? The label can say, see ya, good luck. And guess what? You may never have another break. Here's the deal, man. You often sign the contract without reading it or using the label's lawyer, and that just is what it is. And all of a sudden, guess what? Overnight success, 10 years in the making. Common story arc number 5, the glory days, charts, tours, and chaos. Hit singles, music videos, and magazine covers. We thought we were gods. Turns out we were just guys with bad habits. Because guess what? That grind that you did back in chapter 3, in the bars and the vans, oftentimes you will pick up bad habits because you are working in close proximity to bars. You are working in these bars. You are living hand to mouth. But often what happens is when you are on the grind, you really can't afford to go down the tubes that hard, right? When you're broke, you can't afford bad habits, right? You can't afford to have all the bad habits that you want. But then when you hit those glory days and you start getting the money rolling in, that's when the real sharks show up and are there to offer you anything you want as long as you got the money to pay. Money, fame, and everything that comes with it, especially the vices. Chapter 6, the crash, sophomore slump, and substance soup. The second album tanks harder than their liver. And why does that happen? Here, if I could provide one tip that could help any young band out there, right? Write tons of material, stockpile material. Because once you get on that grind for that first album and they push you out there and you're touring and you're touring and touring, you could be gone for 2 years. You're going to be too exhausted, too strung out, and creatively finished to even try to come up with anything decent for the second album. So you're going to want to stockpile 2, 3, 4 albums if you can of material before. And don't put all your bangers on the first album. Save some for the second album, man, because that sophomore slump can be career ending. Writer's block, rehab stints, and PR nightmares. That's all part of the crash. We were out of songs and out of our minds. Does that sound familiar? Chapter 7, the fallout. Band breakup, burnout, and bitter interviews. Drummer joins the cult. Bassist disappears into the interwebs. Lawsuits, restraining orders, and solo albums no one asked for. We didn't split up. We exploded. Sound familiar? Sounds like every rock book ever written, right? Look, once the label realizes the second album stinks and they don't get behind it, once the fans stop showing up in droves and they move on to something else, once the band is burnt out and putting on a stellar show is no longer the priority, the reality is, man, the glory starts to fade, right? And when the band breaks up, people are bitter. The bass player that didn't get songwriting credits, well, he's ticked off. The singer who's mad at the guitar player for blowing it, he's going to start slagging him in the press. And of course, the singer is the one that the label wants. The band is just a byproduct. If they've got a great singer, the label's going to go, hey, these guys are a mess. You don't need them. Come on with us. We'll get you a producer. We'll find you another guitar player. But here's the reality, man. Lightning only strikes once. The magic, it's gone, right? The magic of that band is gone now. It's destroyed. The fire has been blown out like a candle that's been burning at both ends. Chapter 8, The Reunion. One more spin on the wheel. A decade later, or maybe more, nostalgia sells and bills need paying. Why do you think these bands get together when they hate each other? Maybe things happened that can never truly be erased, right? People sleeping with each other's wives, stealing their substances on the road, slagging each other in the press. Man, they could be bitter for a lifetime. But the reality is, if your wallet is empty, you're going back out on the road. We're back. Older, sober, and slightly in tune. Is the magic ever truly recaptured? No, it never truly is, because oftentimes the reunion comes and sometimes it's just the singer and the guitar player. You know, very rarely are all the pieces intact. And when all the pieces aren't intact, that original sound, it's gone. But here's the deal, man. Oftentimes, that initial chaos, that initial burst of lightning that blows the whole thing up and makes it a legendary act, oftentimes one or two members are so burnt out that by the time the reunion comes, there's no way they would survive these seemingly never-ending reunion tours that we're constantly experiencing. How long has Guns N' Roses been on their reunion tour? Gosh, it feels like it's been 3 or 4 years at least. Let me know in the comments. But here's the deal, man. Could Steven Adler survive 3 or 4 years on the road with what he did to himself? Probably not, man. The reality is he was a huge part of the sound of Guns N' Roses, but is he physically able to do it? I mean, when they tried to get the original band back together and they rehearsed with Steven, he was having back problems and needed surgery or something. And man, there is no way a guy like that would still be going as long as this reunion tour has gone on. Guns N' Roses has already replaced the first drummer that started the reunion tour, right? And now they're on their second reunion tour drummer. Needed a new engine? Boom, get a new drummer. Here's the reality. Sometimes they capture the magic, and sometimes they just capture a paycheck. Number 9, the aftermath, legacy, or lame attempt. It's either a victory lap or a tragic reminder. Oftentimes when you see these reunion tours and you hear the singer can't sing like he used to, or the guitar player's missing a step, or it's only 2 guys on stage from the original band, you know, it's a paycheck. That's what everybody has to realize with these things, man. We all want to hear the music of our past. As fans, I want to relive. I wish Van Halen had all 4 members and were out there playing gigs and sounded just like they did in 1978. But even if everybody was alive, there's no way that they can recreate something they created in their youth, right? Critics will call it brave. Fans can call it sad. Look, there's no end to critics online. The reality is, if you're up there trying to recapture your past on stage and you're not hitting the notes and the tempos are slowed down and the guitars are tuned down, You know what? You're going to have people that are going to just rip you to shreds online. That's the reality of all of this. And you know what the band can say? At least we tried again. And there you have it. The Rockstar Arc in all its messy, glorious, substance-dusted glory. From dive bars to stadiums to rehab, and sometimes back again. It's a tale as old as distortion pedals and as predictable as a band fight before a reunion tour. Some make it out legends, others just make it out alive, and some don't even make it that far. So here's to the dreamers, the burnouts, and the comeback kids, because in rock and roll, you're never really done until the last merch table folds.